First, I would like to thank WAAS, the World Academy of Art and Science, of which I am a fellow, although my time is mostly dedicated to the Club of Rome. I'm the Secretary General, but I wanted to thank WAAS for these for the organization of this conference. This is the fourth and last day. You know, all good things, even the best things, have an end. So this is the fourth day, and it's really exciting to have the opportunity to discuss with our panelists of today on a topic which I think is essential. Challenging, I would say, but essential at the same time. And I just read the framing of the session as it was put in the program of the conference. The sources of global turbulence, you know that global turbulence is framing the whole conference. The sources of global turbulence all point to fundamental flaws in the ideas, theories, institutional functioning, and policies directing society today. This session, in which we are now, will examine and challenge underlying fallacies and propose changes in thinking required to address the root causes of the challenges that humanity confronts. So this is the very interesting, very thought-provoking, I would say, topic. And to discuss that, we have, I would say, an excellent panel, especially because we have people from completely different backgrounds here. If I have to summarize in one word, you know, we have contributions from philosophy, music, business, and healthcare. Nothing less than that. And all of them will be, I think, crucial to dig into the topic. And in order to make the most out of the little time we have, we have agreed with the speakers on a process with the first round of interventions where each of them will have 5 minutes of time to speak, to discuss on two questions that I have proposed to them, connecting with the framing of the session. And they are free to, you are free to address the two questions, one of them, one more than the other, and in whatever order, feel free. The two questions are the following. In your lived experience, whether at personal or professional, in professional domain or a combination of both, what made you dramatically change the way you were thinking, if that ever happened? Because this is about changing the way we think. I think there are good reasons to address that because we face, you know, self-inflicted existential threats for humanity, and either we change the way we address them, but in order to do that, we change the way we think, or the futures will not look good. The present is already not looking good in so many ways. So very important to address this question of how we change the way we think. And it came to my mind, what if you, the panelists in this session, shared your personal experience of changing the way you think in whatever context? How did that happen? And how painful that was, maybe, but up to you. And the second question is, in your opinion, which underlying fallacies should we expose and work on to change our thinking in order to address the root causes of the challenges humanity confronts? In other terms, you know, what are the blind spots that we have right now, particularly the blind spots that we don't want, whatever we see, but we don't want to see. And there's an idea of underlying fallacies that we have to confront, you know, to address the existential challenges. And I stop here from my side. All the panelists have extensive background, very interesting, all of them. I will not put time in presenting them. So maybe now just I give the floor to Piero Dominici from Italy, and who is what I said earlier, is the official philosopher and system thinker. Although I think all of you are to some extent philosophers and system thinkers, but you do that professionally, Piero. A real pleasure to have you with us. Please go ahead.
Yeah.
5 minutes for your intervention.
Yeah. So, dear Carlos, thank you so much. And really, thank you for this very important and meaningful question without any rhetorical dimension. As you know, I've been studying and researching on complex system complexity for 30 years now. I have had many experiences and met many people to have left a mark on me. I think that every encounter stains our lives and our personalities. I think back to my international PhD program and meeting the great Edgar Morin. It was an irrepressible experience of scientific, epistemological, and methodological maturation. Today, Edgar is like an older brother to me, always generous and open in his greatness. But to answer your question, I have to go back to my private life. What has most radically marked me in terms of my way of thinking, in terms of thought and systemic vision, reinforcing the knowledge I've gained through research and teaching, is something that happened in 2020. In 2020, in fact, I was infected when there were no treatments or vaccines, with a very aggressive and systemic form of COVID, with permanent damage to my lungs, pancreas, liver, eyesight, and hearing, less sight. In the early years, I also had to undergo extensive rehabilitation to learn how to breathe again. The breath of complexity, I called. Something we take for granted, and to recover my memory, especially my short-term memory. You know, long-term COVID, you know. After 4 weeks of intensive care with an oxygen helmet, my inseparable travel companion, the doctors thought I wouldn't survive. I can say that living with suffering among many other people in the same serious condition, while I was there counting, thinking about every single breath, I had the most radical and definitive confirmation. Even as you know, in science and knowledge, nothing is ever definitive and certain, of the systemic and relational dimension of everything in the reality we inhabit. And I had the most radical and definitive confirmation of, once again, of all those separations, distinctions, categories, paradigms, epistemologies, which have served us well, very well, in advancing our knowledge and life, need to be radically retaught. So we need to, going beyond what I've called false dichotomies. You can think, for example, nature versus culture, body versus mind. For example, you can think to the great Gregory Bateson. Mind versus environment, individual versus system, social actors versus society, and human being versus nature. Thank you.
Well, that's really touching, Piero. Thank you so much for sharing this personal and very challenging very tough experience, and I'm of course happy that you came back from that. But so interesting to see how you living with suffering as inspired you, as also confirming the complexity. Now we have Natalia ROJCOVSCAIA-TUMAHA, who is joining us from Moldova, and she's a musician, interpreter, composer, musicologist. So flying to a completely different, but of course completely connected space of knowledge and human experiences. And music inspires, I think, all of us. So, Natalia, the floor is yours to share your
Thank you
view.
very much for your kind introduction. I am honored to be here and share my thoughts because I am a creative person, as you mentioned, and I'm involved in different areas of arts and philosophy also, and researchers. And I think that future present form all direction as never before, urging to be born through us. Within trembling once stable structures lies a deeper signal. Turbulence is not merely what disrupts the system, it is how the system learns. What if the destruction what maybe if the dysfunction we witness is not collapse but initiation, a civilization rite of passage where obsolete patterns dissolve to make way for the unthinkable new, like neurons firing before insight, like water turbulence before it becomes cloud. We are undergoing a repattering of consciousness itself. And what if our deepest conflicts, geopolitical, ideological, extensional, are not failures of diplomacy, but the very forge in which planetary awareness is being formed? The seemingly irreconcilable divides between worldviews are in fact a charged process of mutual attunement. The concept of conflict, setting aside its most extreme forms such as war, is a deeper interplay of national interests, cultural identities, and social economic dynamics, much like drama, where conflict is the unity of opposites, a stimulating force that moves the story forward. Ukrainian and Russian narratives, Israeli and Palestinian truths, global North and South perspectives, they do not negate one another, but coexist as interdependent polarities, quantum entanglements arising within a shared human field. Each holds a fragment of the whole. I understand it very well because I am close to this situation and I am from multicultural areas. This is why traditional peace building so often fails. It seeks surface harmony while overlooking the evolutionary intelligence embedded within conflict itself. For this is not a crisis of knowledge, I think. It is a crisis of perception, of imagination, of coherence. Humanity's next evolutionary leap is not technological but perceptual. Neuroscience reveals that our brain instinctively perceives contradiction as threat, triggering amygdala activation and increased defensiveness. But neuroplasticity reveals another path. We can train ourselves to metabolize paradox, not just intellectually, but somatically, relationally, emotionally. This is how we begin to rewire how we relate to difference. Let us listen to those we disagree with, not to defeat them, but to be expanded by them, where another's truth do not threaten ours, but deepens it. When opposite views, not in isolation but in community, are fully expressed without suppression or dominance, something extraordinary happens. A third perspective begins to emerge, fostering not reaction but transformation and leading to an upgraded capacity to hold grief, complexity, and regeneration in the same breath. Like in the Listening from the Heart initiative, where biofeedback helps participants stay open-hearted amid historical wounds, which can be healed this way. Thus, the question is no longer what to fight over, but what to build together. This is what I call evolutionary literacy. That reshaped my thinking was realizing how a child's vision reveals the world's unity, a seamless flow of wonder, hope, and possibility. When even in difficult times, children hold an innate trust in life's creative power, reminding us that transformation begins not with fear or division, but with openness, imagination, and heartful connection. Their clarity teaches us that the future is not something distant to us, but a living presence to listen to and nurture today. The next renaissance will not be sparked by more data, but by deeper integration, a fusion of logic and intuition, science and art, AI and ancestral wisdom, and reimagined education must fuel this transformation, not as knowledge transfer, but as consciousness cultivation. To sum up, orchestrating turbulence requires that we learn to perceive the unseen, sense the emergent, and listen with ourselves and our soul fibers. To the future is not a timeline; it is a rising frequency. I can tell you as a composer. What appears as chaos is coherence at a higher octave, too complex for old instruments. Evolution surges, disorients, and then invites us to rise, to become more than before. So I ask you, what if this turbulence is not the end of something, but the beginning of everything? Thank you.
Oh my God, Natalia, I love that. I thank you so much for this very rich intervention. It's so interesting because I said we have people from philosophy, music, business, and healthcare. And actually, our philosopher Piero started with a lived experience of a big health issue. Now you have done a very philosophical and deep exposition, with which I'm sure that Piero resonates a lot. I do, for sure, digging into complexity. So let's see how the thing goes. You know, we will have, I think, more surprises from the other panelists. You know, so I want to invite our friend Lawrence Ford, who comes from the business side, if we wish, but you will see, because he's the founder and CEO of an organization called Conscious Capital. So trying to bring together capital and consciousness, not a small order. But Lawrence, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Carlos. I was born into asking for big challenges in this life. So yes, people, when they hear consciousness and capital, roll their eyes often. And I say, listen, you know, if we feel like our species is not necessarily on the right trajectory, which I think most conscious humans would agree with these days, why not grab a hold of our two most powerful tools that we have, our consciousness, you know, everything that we think of before we manifest into the world, and this very recent tool called capital that we've invented. So that's why I dance in those worlds, and sometimes they can be strange bedfellows, but I think a lot of our problems come from the fact that they are not worked on together. So I have a couple things I want to, I know we're very tight on time, and I want to have some dialogue, as you've said, Carlos. So I'm going to start a little bit different because I heard the tone of your questioning about make it personal. And then I will maybe spend my last couple minutes, if they are around, for some philosophical aspects of where we're going with the Conscious Capital Foundation around GD purpose and third seasons. And Natalia, you ended with a beautiful question. What if this, and I will put it in my own words, so forgive me, but what if this crisis and these difficult times are really a gift disguised in another way, which I deeply believe are, because the only time humans change is what I call through third seasons when we get our, I think this is the technical term, our collective asses kicked. So we wake up off of our treadmill and question once again why we're here on this earth. I have a story to share personally. Carlos, to answer your question, in exploring human consciousness, there was a time where I left to the other side of the world to be initiated in the Tamang tradition of shamanic traditions. And during that time, silly me, I thought, you know, you were going to go over and learn a lot of things. And I really understood what initiation was all about. And it was about, you know, really being torn down from everything you thought you were, so you could become yourself again, which is deep in the tradition. There was sitting in front of a little diminutive shaman who I was sitting there with my 6'2" frame, trying to act natural, sitting up, sweating, and trying to hold my body. And in that part of the world, when the spirits come into the shamans, they take their time. It's not like an hour therapy session when the bell starts. So it took quite a while for the shaman to get into his spirits. And then when he came in his language slowly being translated to me, he started screaming at me. He said, "You're not in your power. How dare you? How dare you not be in your power? You're a true shaman. All shamans have shaman in their blood. You have not honored your heritage. Go home each day and honor your heritage and honor your bloodline." And screaming at me, this little small shaman seemed like he was 10 feet tall. And I knew instantly what he was saying to me because I was adopted and had a little bit of a rough time as an infant. And so he was basically seeing right through me and saying, "Go home and find your birth parents and follow that heritage because you have some healing to take care of." And he could not have been more right. And, you know, so that journey through my time was deeply informative and literally broke me down in some of the old pre-verbal childhood wounds that I had been carrying that had kept me from living whole. And it was a very, very difficult and also incredible time of my life where I had entered a space which, thank God, I have never seen before or since, but we would call clinical depression for a year. And at the same exact time, I was in such peak knowing. I transcended time and saw, it sounds very hubris, but everything difficult to describe in our language, which, you know, of course, is the way of enlightenment. When we transcend our small thoughts of what we think is, it can literally blow our little minds as to what really is. And so that was very informative. And then when I woke up through this crisis, and I will finish with this, I got a message from Spirit or beyond, and it said, "Go back now and be the change," which I thought was a little bit trite out of a book, but I did go back into Capital because that was the place that real change is needed and where power is these days. So I will leave with that because my 5 minutes are up, and hand it back over to everybody and back to Douglas, I believe.
So many thanks, Lawrence, because again, you are sharing something very deeply personal, and from what you said, with this duality of being very painful and at the same time liberating. You said torn down to become yourself again. That's, I think, a very insightful metaphor. And you also said difficult to describe. Yes, the best things in life are genuinely difficult to describe, almost impossible to define. You know, I used to ask people, try to define love, and but at the same time, everyone is able to recognize love when we feel it. So what you describe of your experiences, I feel, is a little bit in that category, right? So
Exactly.
many thanks for your openness. And now we have Douglas BONAR, who I said somebody from healthcare, is a clinical director at an organization called Center for Wellness. And if I'm not wrong, there was also something significant, Douglas, in your life, which led you, a significant change in your life, which led you to do that. So please, the floor is yours. Happy to hear you, and please share your experience.
Thank you. Thank you. How exciting. I'm new to this, to the World Academy, so thank you for accepting me on this panel. This is really wonderful for me, quite an experience. Yeah, I'm a licensed mental health counselor, have been for 45 years. I just retired last year from a private practice. And this all started for me. The dramatic experience goes back 55 years ago when I was a young Marine in Vietnam, where I had a powerful spiritual experience of oneness, essentially. That changed my life. My identity started to form then in Vietnam. I left Vietnam, went to Hawaii. I turned in a top secret crypto clearance. I worked in the field of intelligence. I turned in my clearance as a protest against the war, and it all started from them. I knew I had to be part of the solution. I had to be part. So also grappling at that time with addictions. Many of us came back from Vietnam with our addictions, as you all know. So this was a piece that dramatically changed my life. It was never the same after that, essentially. I went back to school at that time, got my degrees in psychology and got my graduate degrees in counselor education. I worked for 23 years as a consultant on child abuse and neglect cases. Professional consultant doing thousands of family interviews and reports to the court and all that about child custody, about safety of the victims, etc. During that time, I also started groups on parenting. I was studying child development extensively during those 23 years, started groups called Roots and Wings, the Balance of Healthy Parenting, to put into practice what I knew about development, developing our wholeness, not just development of childhood development, but the progression of our evolutionary development, that we are to go beyond just being okay. We are to thrive, essentially. After 23 years in this profession, I retired, and then I went on to start my private practice at a center for wellness. My clients are court-ordered into my private practice for 29 weeks, 6 full months after being arrested for domestic violence and other acts of violence. So as a group therapist, they're in my groups for 29 weeks. I morphed my parenting groups, Roots and Wings Way of Wholeness, into Roots and Wings Way of Wholeness, where I get to teach my clients about ourselves as essentially divine beings. This is information they've never had in their lives. It was talked about the wounding. I heard you talk about that, Lawrence, the personal wounding that we get growing up in our families, in our communities, in the culture that we raised in, which was very yang dominant. We're all wounded to some extent, but the people that were court ordered, very much wounding. I got to teach them. What an opportunity. Here's a mantra that I use. I get to initiate the uninitiated. And here's a challenge to all of us to bring our gifts forth and be able to speak from our passion of what we want to accomplish, what we are able to in our professions, our personal lives, in our relationships, in order to bring this way of wholeness. The second question that you had asked, Carlos, which underlying fallacy should we expose and work on to change our thinking? To think that it's only about our thinking, it's not just cognitive. It's not a cognitive thinking. We need to embody this. It's about our feeling, our experiences, as everybody is putting out, to go beyond just our cognitive that we are now in our evolutionary movement. We're recognizing that we are part of the living earth, the consciousness of Gaia, the living earth, and a conscious universe, the holo movement, if you will. If you're familiar with the information of David Bohm, the hollow movement, this is what I am called to bring forth, this information that we are the earth. We are the voice, we are the consciousness of the universe, to initiate the uninitiated, to tell people in our families, in our communities, through our professions, this greater truth of our being, not just what we're doing, the yang aspect of doing, but the yin aspect. We are evolving now, as been said by others. This is the opportunity. The polycrisis is the opportunity of our growth into our future humanity. And with that, I am complete, and I'll turn it back to you, Carlos.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Very rich as well. And thank you all again for sharing your personal experience. I mean, there is a lot of resonance with different words, different perspectives, but there is a lot of resonance between you all. Now, I mean, I would like you to maybe to react a little bit to what the others have said, or just add something in whatever order who wants to go. I mean, time is still a constraint, as you know. We have something like 3 minutes each, and I know this is ridiculous, but 3 minutes each for each of you. But please, who wants to say something? Who wants to react or share something else? Piero?
I'll jump in. It looks like, oh, go ahead.
As you
go ahead.
prefer.
Go, please.
As you prefer, no problem.
Go ahead,
Okay,
Lawrence.
I will go quick. I think, we've all talked about times in life where we need to get our collective butts kicked to wake up. The shamans talk about us sleepwalking through life. We literally are not present. We are not here. And which aware of a lot of our unconscious behavior and constructs, are produced, which is a very dangerous thing. What I'd like to just bring up as part of bringing delight to the group here is that we're in a fascinating time to be alive. Artificial intelligence, which we haven't brought up yet. I've just finished my book, The World Doesn't Need You, with the NT crossed out, is going to be published in December, is a fabulous time, because what it's doing is it's mirroring who we are and our constructs of our unconscious behaviors at mass and at scale. It's eating Moore's law for lunch. I mean, we are doubling every 2 to 3 months, not every 2 to 3 years now. And it is going to be scaling us off a cliff or waking us up. And to finish up, about where I'd love this conversation to go, is that I believe, and I think everybody is saying this, that we're all here for a reason. And when we get to live our purpose, when we get to align our being with our doing, we have inner peace. And when more of us do it, we have world peace. And yes, we can be very screwed up creatures. It's showed every day in the news and around the globe. But when we're on purpose, man, we are unstoppable. We have all the world's solutions we need. They just need to be discovered, empowered, and amplified. That's the work we're doing at Conscious Capital Foundation. Come join us. But most importantly, we have to address money. Yes, Carlos, I am coming from the capital side as well. And, we've created this thing called GDP, which was great post-World War II. Lovely. But guess what? It's broken. It needs an upgrade. And so I'm calling to GD purpose, where we bring purpose in as the highest value of currency, which is not just a theoretical, aloof thing. We've got beautiful members of WAAS joining us in the development of this theory, and I think it's a wonderful hack we can do, a la a Buckminster Fuller trim tab, to be able to change our current system, to be able to drive us in a whole new direction and raise our consciousness as a species. So I just wanted to throw that out to this wonderful group and continue the discussion.
Thank you so much. Piero.
But really, really interesting. Another time. I think that listening to all the speeches, not only defense by authoritative colleague and friends, not only in this panel. I think that I can try to share with you some points. I clarify that I speak also as a social scientist, aware of the importance of quantitative data. But as you know very well, quantitative data doesn't exhaust the complexity of reality. And you know very well that complexity doesn't mean more difficult. Complexity doesn't mean more confusion. The culture of complexity is a culture of co-responsibility, of sustainability. Implies the systemic and relational dimension of life and of social sciences, of social system. But the challenge of the contemporary world are epistemological and education. They regards, for example, what we know and define as knowledge, and the methods on which we try to achieve knowledge. So the strong premise from which we start are that the challenge of the contemporary age are first and foremost epistemological and educational. So as we all know very well, the transdisciplinarity that is the essential tool and strategy relatively to all our goals, not only SDG goals, at the micro and macro level, and in order to be able to deal with the complex and systemic dimension of problems, does not consist simply of putting together content and or subject from the humanities and the hard sciences area, which is what generally happens in our school and university. We mix the subjects of the two fields and think that this is transdisciplinarity. We need a strong project and strategy, because this unification and sharing of all sciences, going beyond, I have no time to explain this, the STEM doctrines, implies epistemological and methodological problems. It implies a focus on how we teach more than on what we teach. And I believe that in addition to being aware of this, we should make it explicit in our actions and projects. However, it was slowly becoming evident that the traditional linear models and reductionistic deterministic approach were no longer capable of analyzing the unstable dynamics of reality. You can think, for example, in a lot of countries, transdisciplinarity is the criterion that produces the selection among the academics and the social and hard scientists. At the level of public discourse, everyone support the idea of multi-transdisciplinary approach. But in reality, they are openly obstaculated. And I think that this is the challenge of this age. And I think that we be aware that we are dealing with several grand illusions related to this hyper-technological civilization that I call also define the great mistake. The belief that all the problems can be solved by delegating solution solely to technology, and that complexity in social system can be measured, managed, and predicted through data, algorithms, formulas, and statistics. This is the general confusion also in scientific literatures that confuse computational complexity and complexity. Computational complexity consists of infinite sequences of data that are in disorder, and we need to order through algorithms and mathematical formulas. But complexity consists of also what we call emergent properties, what is not observable, what is not observable at the start of this observation. So we need to go beyond false dichotomies, beyond logical separation, and try to construct a culture of complexity, and let me say, a culture of error. That is very important. Error is at the base of scientific knowledge and of every kind of learning. Thanks,
Thank you.
Carlos. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Piero. You know, as somebody with a background in complexity theory, I loved in particular when you said the culture of complexity is co-responsibility. I love that. I mean, many thanks. Natalia, Douglas, who wants to
Yes, I
go
have
ahead,
some
Natalia?
thoughts
Yep.
about this. Yes, I am fully agree with Piero, because the education is the key for us, especially this interdisciplinary approach, because we involve it in our practices also. We add the creative aspect, because it is very fruitful for younger generations potential. We have this direction as socially engaged art, and it works very well when we addressing to synergy of different kind of arts and speak directly with soul, with interdisciplinary areas, disciplines which can empower each other, and it is very good way for understanding our reality and our perspectives for the future. And especially it gives younger generation the moral values again, because this is the basis foundation for us. And yes, our future is complexity, but I see the good prototypes of this new piece, and it is already here. And I know that emerging AI assistant reconciliation tools are beginning to show each other side how trauma shapes perception. Heart coherence techniques are increasingly explored in high-scale negotiations to support emotional regulation. Generative justice frameworks aim to replace punishment with collective meaning-making. These are not fantasies; they are a sign of new kind of peace, and one that doesn't eliminate difference but expands the cognitive and emotional capacity to contain it, and personally, and in all our aspects of our life. And yes, I am an optimist, and I see the perspective for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Natalia. Douglas.
Oh, I'm surrounded by such brilliance. This is great.
Me too.
We are going from a culture of complexity into a culture of interbeing. This was said during one of the past panels, the culture of interbeing, where we begin to understand our interconnectedness, forming the islands of coherence. I'm sure you're all familiar now, the islands of coherence. And this is what we are in right now, an island of coherence. I was so excited, Natalia, when you were presenting earlier, that you were talking about the evolutionary intelligence, quantum entanglements, neuroplasticity. These are some of the words that we use in the progressive healthcare field, that we're looking now into this. We are using skills, and this is an important part, the skill building. This is not, again, just about intellect. This is heart-related stuff. Finding the skills like mindfulness practice, contemplation, emotional self-regulation. And I use this extensively in my practice, of course, working with the offenders that are sent into my practice so they could really embody this. The three parts I mentioned earlier. There's an understanding of our interconnectedness. There's the embodiment of it, the experience of it. This is where our passion brews. And then there's the application of it. So developing this practice in our lives, like of mindfulness, of contemplation, we are literally changing our brain physiology, the neuroplasticity again, forging new neural pathways, opening up our intuitive processes. This is the path of the shaman. I'm sure you recognize it, Lawrence, very well, that we're opening up new understanding of our oneness, not just cognitive, again, but an experiential understanding that we are one, we are connected with a living earth, incorporating indigenous wisdom, listening to what we're taught from the indigenous. We're also connecting with the cosmos, reconnecting with cosmos. I collect books. It's one of the things I do. Reconnecting with source. Erwin Laszlo, I'm sure from the Club of Rome, Carlos, you're very familiar with Erwin's books. He tells us so explicitly we've got to reconnect with this source, whether you call it God or Allah or love. But we need to reconnect with this. This is part of us. It runs through us, for us, as us, manifesting synchronicities. All sorts of things are going to be happening over the next years. The polycrisis, not just as a push to do, but also the syntropy. That was entropy. The syntropy, the future human. We are learning from our human potential, from our future human. So it's a good time to be alive right now. I would urge everybody to have hope during this, manifest the glory, manifest your potential, and give that gift to others of our wholeness. Thank you.
So many thanks. So we are getting, unfortunately, close to the end of this session. Very rich, very difficult to summarize. At the same time, there has been so much resonance between what you all said. And thank you for mentioning, Douglas. This is one of my favorite quotes, the one by Ilya Prigozhin, who, by the way, was prominent member of the Club of Rome in the 1970s. This idea that in moments of chaos, small islands of coherence have the capacity to shift the entire system to a higher order, So let's practice that. I would like to highlight some of the messages which have come from your participation. One is that learning comes often, maybe always, from suffering, from situations, really challenging situations, from situations of pain, of situations which question completely yourself, and your life, challenges even the possibility of life, as Piero made the point. But that definitely crisis, this has been said by all of you in different ways, that the crisis opens the space of possibilities. This is actually when we are in the middle of the crisis of the big one, that we can reconsider, that we can change the way we think, that we can learn in the sense of changing. By the way, talking about quotes, our friend Nora Bateson says, against the idea that changing the way we think is not very practical. She said in a meeting a few years ago, well, this is the most practical thing that you can do, changing the way we think. And this can only come, it seems, out of crisis, out of deep crisis. I would add, and this is, you have mentioned also that this is in our common heritage since the beginning of times from many originary cultures. We have known that since the beginning of times. But also interestingly, modern science rediscovering all this. By the way, you mentioned David Bohm, Douglas. One of our colleagues in the Club of Rome, Jude Curivan, is working on the unity perspective. So we will don't know exactly when, but in the coming weeks, months, we will make a publication on exactly on that. Because this is so interesting. I just want to bring another quote that I love from the poet Hölderlin, who said, "But where the danger is, also grows the saving power." So again, the same message that this is by facing our challenges and our shadowlands, that Naomi Klein would call that way, our shadowlands, that we have an opportunity to learn. And then what I'm increasingly finding out in different contexts, in different conversations with different audiences, the point is not only facing realities, unveiling our blind spots. For instance, the blind spot that this is beyond the cognitive. It implies all threads of knowledge, but in particular, it implies recognizing not only that the epistemology of classical mechanics to say something is limited, but also that it's more than our rational consciousness. It has to embody, all our capacities and all our body. And in particular, it has to involve our emotions and which emotions are dominating us at some moment, When facing challenges, we see what we see around is a lot driven by anxiety and fear, and not even panic, and closing ourselves, closing our borders, the borders of our countries, bombing the neighbor, and dehumanizing other beings, other human beings, but also neglecting the life which is in non-human beings, destroying all that because we are driven by fear. But we also know since the origins of time, and in particular in the Western tradition, we know from Greek tragedies that whenever you receive a prophecy, warning about something bad that will happen in the future, if you react driven by fear to that, what you do is actually to accelerate the conditions for that prophecy to become true. So Greek tragedy is full of these self-fulfilling prophecies. We should be already aware of that. And then, of course, the answer to that is that even if it is very tough, very difficult, very challenging, instead of, or in addition to, maybe, but we have to leave ourselves to be driven by hope and by love when facing these challenging situations. And hope, Natalia, you said you are optimistic. I am optimistic, yes, but I recognize the difference between optimism and hope. I mean, or naive optimism is to believe that things will go okay. This is not what we are talking about. Hope is the decision, that you bet on the humanity of everybody. You bet on life with a capital L, or whatever you want to call it. There are many other names, and you work on it. It's hope is an action, not just passive.
Yes, because every situation has two sides, and we need to maybe concentrate on the opportunities, possibilities for us, facilities, and this is my way.
No, but also on the duality, you spoke very well about this duality, and the us and them, and that we have to overcome these divide, of us and them. So to finish, I just want each of you to say something, I proposed, let's be it something between less than 5 words about how you feel right now, whatever you want to share at the end of the session. So maybe Natalia, you can start.
Thank you very much. I'm very inspired by our conversation today. It was very meaningful for me. It was very great time when I heard about your distinguished experience and very useful some ideas for my activities. And I would like to be in interconnection with dear World Academy of Art and Science, and this is the most important, significant place when we can exchange and make some changes, good changes for the future. And today, I think that we need to concentrate on interconnection, of course, and on creativity and only positive vibrations, because everything in our life, in our world, is vibration, and we have the same laws in our universe. It can be appears in every side of our life. And we can understand very deeply each other, and we need to found this unique language of emergence with which you can understand each other better and go.
Yes, thank you. So that was many more than 5 words. So please, Lawrence, Piero.
In 5 words. 5 words, quoting Rumi, the wound is the space where the light enters. Just know that.
Wow.
Yeah, the wound is the space where light enters. So I'll leave it at that.
Great. Lawrence, Piero, very, very short.
Piero, go ahead.
Oh, okay, no problem. Really. I think that data and information are not experience. And I like to conclude with the great scientist and also philosopher Werner Heisenberg, when he told us that what we observe is not nature in itself, is the nature exposed to our method of investigation. I think that in these years, we underestimated the fundamental role of thinking and of system of thought. Thanks.
Thank you. Lawrence, last words.
Okay, I'm going to resist my quantum physics and ethereal aspect here and get very practical. Follow the incentives.
Okay. So many thanks. We are exactly punctual, but we are unfortunately done in terms of time. Many thanks to all of you. It has been a very rich, and I hope the attendants will have enjoyed at least as much as I did, your presence and your exchanges and your openness. Many thanks to all of you.